Hello, I'm the awesome Tutor, and today we're going to be looking at the effects of a current account deficit, or the significance of a current account deficit. That's question 1b. Okay? By the way, this says 38, not 28. Okay, don't worry, I'm good at economics. So let's move to that question. I'm going to go through one of my answers, and whilst I'm going through it, if I need to explain any economic concepts, I'll explain them with another piece of paper, okay? So let's start. A current account deficit occurs when there is a net outflow of trade in goods and services, income, and transfers. Remember, the current account has four parts to it. It has the balance of trade in goods, the balance of trade in services, net investment income, and net transfers. So that's what you have here is a definition of a current account deficit. So it's always good to start with a definition. The UK has maintained a current account deficit for the last 2 decades, having significant long-term effects on the economy. So if you go back to the question actually said, discuss the significance of current account deficits to a country of your choice. So it wants you to apply the knowledge to a specific country. Now you can obviously apply it to more than one. In this case, I chose to apply it to the UK. So here we already established that we're going to that this essay is going to be an essay that is filled with application. And that's going to get you those high marks. The main consequence is the difficulty in financing the current account deficit. For example, by foreign direct investment through the financial account. Now, if you remember from the last video that I posted the first one on the balance of payments, about the current account. If you have a deficit, it means that you're spending more than you're receiving in income. Okay? Because the deficit basically means on the current account that money coming into the country is less than money going out of the country. Okay? And therefore you need to fund that deficit. That money needs to come from somewhere. And in the first video on the balance of payments, I talked about how you can fund it. Number one, you can print money. Obviously that has consequences of hyperinflation. Number two, foreign direct investment. Okay, that's one of the main ones that countries opt for. Number three, you can get loans. Another one that countries usually opt for, but it has lots of problems like interest payments and results in indebtedness. Number four, what you can do is you can use your reserves. But obviously, they will run out. So part of the problem of having a current account deficit is finding a way to fund it. And that's what I talk about in my first point here. So the difficulty to fund it, for example, by foreign direct investment through the financial account. Remember, if you have a current account deficit, you're usually going to have a surplus in either the financial or capital account, because foreign direct investment is recorded where? In the financial account. Again, if you don't understand this, watch my first video on the balance of payments. However, already we're starting with evaluative language. All right, you need evaluation in these essays. With the recent Brexit process, uncertainty has been disseminated amongst investors, thus deterring FDI and making it harder to attract hot money flows. Lots of terminology in there. If you don't understand what that terminology means, again, watch the first video. Okay, with Brexit, direct application, the Brexit process, obviously has become a disaster for the United Kingdom. And businesses, it's caused so much uncertainty and damage to businesses everywhere in the UK and in the European Union, because they don't know what the trade relationship is going to be like. Okay, and that's obviously deterred foreign direct investment into the UK, making it harder for them to fund their current account deficit. This is highly significant as it makes it harder to deal with the deficit, as the UK is essentially spending more than its income and therefore needs some way to finance this. Even FDI cannot be attracted forever. That's true. You cannot continuously attract FDI. You need to find a sustainable way to fund your current account deficit. So the only resort that's left is borrowing from abroad, which has dire consequences on the UK's already large national debt. The fact that I know it already has a large national debt, that's already an application mark. In fact, I go even further, giving the figure for the national debt. In fact, in 2017, the national debt reached 85.8% of GDP. Now, you don't necessarily need the specific knowledge, but if you have it and examiners see it, obviously it's not going to hurt your essay. It's going to elevate it. Thus, a current account deficit has had detrimental effects, as attempting to finance it has only increased indebtedness. Furthermore, as you can see from the diagram, here we have a diagram. On the left, the way the financial monetary system functions is that debt is always larger than money supply. This is not a commonly known fact, and I don't have time to explain it in this video, but there is an excellent economist who explains it very well. I'll send you a link in the description below. I recommend highly that you watch it, because if you understand the way the money works and the way that the system works, you'll understand economics. Okay, so the way the monetary system works is debt is bigger than money supply. Okay, I will not explain that in this video. Consequently, the significance of a current account deficit is augmented, fancy language there, basically means it's increased, as the effect of indebtedness will eventually lead to defaults. Okay, if you have so many interest payments and you're constantly getting into debt and you cannot finance your loans, then you're going to default, meaning that you cancel the payment on your loans. You can no longer pay them, so you default. And that happened in 2007, 2008, the financial crisis, where many people defaulted on their loans and the housing bubble burst. You should know about the most fundamental, basic, common issues that are going on around the world or have occurred, especially the 2007-8 financial crisis. You should know this general knowledge about economics. It'll help you a lot in your essays, since there's not enough money in circulation to finance all the debt. Okay, and that's supported by the diagram that was in the previous page. As a result, there will likely be high financial instability in the future if this persists, possibly leading to another financial crisis like in 2008, see, another application mark, due to a likely credit crunch, because that's what happened, if people start defaulting again. However, again, even more evaluation. The UK, I need to work on my grammar, the UK might be able to finance the current account deficit in the short term, long term, common evaluation points, by using its foreign currency reserves. See, that was another way to finance the deficit. The only problem with this is that they will eventually run out. So in the long term, short term, long term, there might well be financial instability if the UK continues to have a current account deficit. Moreover, if the Brexit terms with the UK are favorable, so soft Brexit, hard Brexit. I wrote this essay a while ago, a couple of months ago. So it's not taking into account the current Brexit disasters that are going on. So make sure you keep up to date with all the current political and economic issues that are occurring around the world today. Then, moreover, Brexit terms with UK are favorable soft Brexit. Then this is likely to re-secure certainty and confidence in investors so that FDI may increase to fund the deficit. Now, what you've noticed here, or what you should have noticed, is I spent so long now talking about the difficulty with financing the current account deficit. Now I have to go on to another point, all right? Now, with your economics essays, you don't need like 10 or 15 points, all that stuff. You just have to have like maybe even 2 or 3 points, but are so fully developed that you're guaranteed to get those marks. Like I've spent what? A page and a half talking about the difficulty with funding the current account deficit, and I've used application and evaluation throughout. That's already at what? 15, 16, 17 marks already out of 25. Additionally, a large current account deficit like the UK's could cause a depreciation in exchange rates. So now I've moved from a more, what's the word? Now I've moved from an essay that's mainly about application to a more technical and theoretical essay. All right? You need a balance, but it's better to include both at the same time. As lower value of exports and higher value of imports means that demand for the pound will decrease. And supply of the pound will increase in the foreign markets as consumers supply the sterling in exchange for another. This is basically explaining how exchange rates works. Okay, so this results the result is a leftward shift in demand and a rightward shift in supply in the diagram below. All right, more diagrams. So this is a diagram for exchange rates. The supply of the currency increases. This will cause price decrease, blah, 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 blah. Analysis of the diagram. This could have adverse effects on the economy as it will cause imported inflation for consumers and firms who rely on imports for raw materials. Okay, thus this may increase cost of production for firms, causing cost push inflation as shown below, also decreasing output from blah, 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 hindering economic growth and increasing unemployment. So what I've done here is I've drawn a link between two diagrams. So it shows my depth of knowledge of the links between topics in macroeconomics, and that really helps with your essays. Okay? In conclusion, you can see I kind of ran out of time here. Okay, because these two diagrams need much more analysis, and also they're lacking in application. So it's not a perfect essay. Always have a conclusion in 25 markers, because they allow you to substantiate your evaluations and make your essay stand out and reinforce your points. In conclusion, the UK has experienced large current account deficits for a significantly long period of time, creating a multitude of issues and problematic consequences, most significantly of which ranking the factors or ranking the points that you have made is a form of evaluation. So that's another good thing about conclusions. You can rank your factors. Most significantly of which is the problems with funding the deficit and the long-term implications of this, exacerbated by the Brexit process. Despite short-term solutions and the possibility of a soft Brexit, if the UK continues to have a current account deficit, then it will continue to suffer in the long term. Okay, and that this essay got 24 out of 25. Personally, I think I could have done a lot more to improve it. Okay, there's so much more I could have talked about. For example, the ADAS diagram, it's like the most common point that's used with current account deficits. Because if you have a current account deficit, usually what that means is that the value of your exports is smaller than the value of your imports. And what that does, because if you know what aggregate demand is, one of the factors of aggregate demand is net exports. So if your value of exports is less than the value of imports, then net exports decreases. And what that does is it reduces aggregate demand, and you can show that on a diagram with all the implications, price reducing, economic growth reducing, etc. This has been the Awesome Tutor. Bye.